Hey everyone, my name is Ivana and welcome back to another lunch break conversation. Today I am joined by Dr. Laura Dreer. Now, Dr. Dreer is a clinical psychologist at UAB, and Dr. Dreer is here today to talk about improving our mental health while we're at home. For a lot of us, this is our third week at home, social distancing, working from home, and being alone. That's kind of a plus or minus. This is my third week at home. So everybody is maybe in a little bit different time frame, but most people are under those guidelines of staying home, staying away from the general public, and trying to navigate this world of how to keep in a good mood, and it's hard. So Dr. Dreer is here to talk with us about some of her top tips and also to answer any questions y'all have about how to keep your spirits up. If you have any questions, drop them here and I will get Dr. Dreer to answer them. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at y'all's comments. So I'm just going to throw it to Dr. Dreer. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Ivana. I appreciate it, and it's a great topic area, I think, to talk about, and it's one near and dear to my heart, mental health and staying mentally fit. I know I've heard a lot about things about physically fit, but there's also the other part about being mentally fit and getting through this. And I know it's new to everybody across the world affected by it, so you're not alone in that sense. But it's just the new different times and trying to navigate that process with work, or if you lost your job, or if you're home alone, retired as an older adult, or you have a disability. There's so many different aspects to it. Trying to cope with it is really going to be tough. And like you said, we're in week 3. Every day have to wake up and I'm like, what is it today? Is it Tuesday or Thursday? Like, just your sense of time's off. And so it's all kind of new. But I think collectively together as a whole community, it's been kind of neat seeing some positive sides to it, things you wouldn't imagine that I've heard. And then there's some other things that I think this is a great opportunity to help the folks learn some ways to kind of help themselves as well as others that might be vulnerable to get in coping through this. And it will get better, but we don't know how long, and so it's gonna wear on us. So try and stay as mentally fit as we can.
Right. And to kind of get us out of the, just getting down in the dumps of being not able to go and see your friends and have dinner with them if you have a weekly standing date with your girlfriends or your guy friends. Or if you are in a dating relationship and you're not living together, you're not able to see that person. And anybody that you're not really living with, you're distanced from. And
right.
I know that something that you have talked about before is staying social as you can. I guess talking on the phone, FaceTime, things like that. Is that something that you think can kind of give us that sense of normalcy?
I think so, and I'm going through it myself. So, going to pull some of my personal and some things I've heard from friends and patients and our research participants. So I think that trying to stay connected is very important, because we know that, especially from the research, that loneliness can really lead to depression and it affects your physical health as well. So there's a lot of risk factors along with just being alone or not connected socially with others. So in the times of right now, especially with social distancing and trying to stay, the movies are closed, you can't go out to a dinner. I'm so used to going out Friday night, just unwind with friends and have a glass of wine or whatnot. And so it's been really hard getting used to that. The first week is kind of like, well, let's just be a week. Now we're in the second week. It was like maybe a little longer. And it's like, oh my gosh, how much longer? So I think if you can, especially you brought up a good point with meals, because meals are like a centerpiece for families, for friends, where you gather and you get together. These go back to a long time ago, in terms of bringing people together as a social activity. And talking, conversing, and it's an easy way to have people open up. So I still think you can do that in creative ways. Some are I've done it with my folks that are up in Michigan, and other friends that are scattered throughout the country. Just did it last night with some colleagues, and we prepared our meals. I watched one of them make a recipe, and put that into action, and I was so that couldn't go through the FaceTime and pull that into me, but we were all kind of making our own stuff and drinking, catching up, and so those things are really important. I felt like I almost was there in front of them, And I think if you don't have internet access, it's also important. Those folks too are really maybe a little more vulnerable, but getting creative. If you can't afford the internet, or you're in a place like a nursing home or whatnot and kind of more isolated, don't know how to use the internet or other ways with technology. We had some creative stories where even grandkids are coming up to the window, or just waving, or signs, or I've seen some stories where teachers are driving through the neighborhood just to see the kids, and they're in the car, social distance, but the kids got to actually see their teachers, and that does do, I think, a boost to your morale getting through this. They knew the teachers were okay. Same thing with grandparents. They like to kind of see their grandkids or adult children and whatnot. And so trying to keep up and find creative ways to do that. One last thing, another neat thing was Italy and how they responded. They're in close quarters, and I've been there once, and it's a beautiful city, but they're out on their balconies singing to each other, playing musical instruments, something like that, where just get creative to stay in touch and keep the social distance in mind. Still can get out and do things like exercise. I'd be cautioned to say getting out, but at a social distance, because you can do some things like biking, keeping the distance from each other. But that is important to me.
And one person in our Facebook comments is saying FaceTime's okay, but it's not the same as spending time with family or others. And you're right, it's not. And it's not going to be. But unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at right now is we're having to take second best and third best during this time. I know I've done FaceTime lunch dates. I know a bunch of my friends have done like virtual happy hours, and I love your cooking idea, although I'm very tired of cooking. I cannot wait to go and let somebody else cook for me and clean for me and feed me. It is going to be something I will not take for granted anymore. And it is, but that's a cool idea, doing, sharing an activity with somebody over FaceTime, not just sitting down and talking, but doing something that you would normally do together.
Jumping real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to before I forget. Another activity like games and things like that. I played that with my nephews over the weekend, just like, let's play trivia or something like that, where you can ask them questions. You can do it on the phone too if you don't have, and I know that's even worse than FaceTime, but whatever you can afford and what you have access to, trying to get creative, like trivia or different things, or asking them questions. There's what is this thing? Forget what it's called, StoryCorps, where you can prepare some questions, and maybe you want to ask your grandparents some questions you never asked them, or we try to rotate that like with different family members and ask them, get to know your family member better and draw it out of a hat, and you call Uncle so-and-so that week or whatnot. So just try and think outside the box. That keeps your mind mentally active, and there's other things aside from food or happy hours and things like that you can actually get to know someone maybe you haven't known in a better way, or a book club, things like that.
Right. That's really cool. And I know I'm seeing several grandparents that have commented on here saying they miss their grandchildren. And something that I thought was, just going off of you about these activities, I know something I asked my mother to do was, my grandfather was in World War II. And I said, Mom, I need you to write all this down and to give us these memories so that when you're gone, we can have them and I can share them with my children and, with our children's children. And so, I think that's a great idea. If you're a grandparent, if you have some really cool stories, write them down. Use this time to be able to create that record so that your grandchildren and their grandchildren will know you and know what you did. A question that I got from Nelda, she said, can we do the drive-bys for our grandchildren and vice versa and wave from the car?
The drive-bys, yeah. I love the grandparent drive-bys.
The grandparent drive-bys, yes. And yes, you can. Nelda, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're social distancing and you're in your car and they are inside. I think that's something that Dr. Dreer mentioned earlier is a great way to keep in touch, kind of like with the teacher parades and drive-bys. If that is, if you're healthy and you can do that and you can do it in a safe way away from people, then that's a great idea, Nelda. And I know that it would make you feel better to see your grandchildren.
And they're getting some fresh air, and you keep that distance. And kids, they know grandma and grandpa are okay. That's also important for kids, I think, especially the younger ones, that they're kind of worried, and developmentally you're not sure what's going through their mind. But if they actually can see grandma and grandpa are okay, if you can get out and do that, you're feeling physically good. When it's a nice, beautiful day, just put the window down and go for a short drive or a longer drive and come back in. So
that's a great point. And somebody also mentioned, Nikita mentioned a app called House Party. It's great to download with friends and family, she said. I have not used that, but I take your word for it. I know some board games have also come up with kind of like virtual apps to play in other ways. But another tip that you had that I wanted to talk about was was reading a book and also watching positive shows, movies, or just getting away from the daily news and the news stations and the constant coverage of coronavirus.
I agree. I think while it's important, it's a balance. You have to stay updated. You want to know, like right now, like, and I am saying like go drive by, but try and keep it short distance, because the other thing to keep in mind is there's first responders out there. So if something does happen, a lot of people are out, again, they have to respond to that. They put themselves at risk, and we'll just be careful of that. But I think that those are important things to like refocus your mind, because like you want to check in. I do it myself in the morning, kind of check on, read through the news, or look at my local TV stations and check in with the CDC website that has the most informative scientific website on any changes, and then turn that off. Either some people like to do in the morning or at the end of the day, because things do change kind of fast. But if you're leaving it on all day, sometimes I used to have it in the background, just TV, some noise. And I think I had that on Saturday, and I would caught myself like, wow, I just got to change this, because it's getting in the back of your mind when that's on the news. And if you have kids too, they're hearing that, and you don't know how they're processing. I think probably unintentionally, you're not really aware of that. So I think when you see, like, you read a good book, or you hear some good stories, like I love the positive stories of like I said, Italy, they get out and they're singing on their balconies, like hearing something kind of creative and things like that, where you can do things to mentally stimulate your mind, but also kind of retraining. We do kind of behavioral therapy, where the main focus of doing the therapy to prevent depression is to kind of restructure, or treat depression too, is restructure your negative thoughts so that you're kind of retraining your brain to think more positively. And that takes some therapy and work, but just like physical activity, if you're going to exercise and work out, you put the effort into that. You have to start slowly and work your way up to it. And same thing with like retraining your mind to think positively. And I think I said some things with, we know from the research too, like a gratitude journal, just write 3 things you're grateful for each day. We found in studies, like if you do that 30 days in a row, you've already started to train your mind to search for the positives. There are a lot of negatives. I agree. I'm not just diminishing that. That's true. And there's a lot of worry and stress, but I think you can write those down. That kind of helps you rebalance your mindset.
That's a great idea. I've put some of your ideas on our screen here. Help someone else. Read a book. Spend time with the pet. Stay socially connected. Get moving and get outside, and start and end your day with gratitude, which you just kind of talked about. And I think that the get moving, the exercise and getting outside is a big one, because getting outside for walks and things, I know that's something that people have had questions about, and from at least my understanding, the health department has said that's fine to get outside and take your walks, but again, keep socially distanced. Don't go on these trails or things where people are all crammed together. You still got to have your distance, but it can do amazing things for your mindset to just get outside, get moving, get those endorphins going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen quite a bit of people like outside more and doing things, and I think what I've observed is a lot of people are pretty aware of how far to keep apart.
It looks like we have lost Dr. Dreer here. I don't know. Her internet must have gone out, but so you just got me, guys. I'm sorry, but I'll go over a couple of her main points. Like she said earlier, the practice mindfulness and the gratitude journal, and just keeping in mind the things that you have to be thankful for. She also mentioned the spending time with your pets, getting outside, and that's something that, we were talking about with the different ways to exercise, the different ways to get outside, and again, keep your social distance, but be able to utilize this time and to do that. that was something Dr. Dreer was saying before she cut out on us. And again, here's some of the things on the screen that the doctor really emphasized. And again, she talked some more about different ways to limit your exposure to bad news and to watch positive things or keep a positive mindset, so you do not get in depression or get any sort of mental funk during this time. Now, if you have any more questions for Dr. Dreer, please leave them here and I will get them to her. I'm sorry she cut out on us. I don't know, suicide hotline and other things if you